Hi everyone. In this episode of Talking Primates, we meet Kenneth, a man whose life journey spans continents, heartbreak, and ultimately redemption. Raised in Uganda without a father figure, Kenneth's youth was marked by rebellion, survival, and a fierce desire to escape. That escape eventually brought him to Europe, not through privilege or paperwork, but through risk, uncertainty, and life as an undocumented immigrant in the Netherlands. For years, Kenneth lived in limbo, hiding behind a false name, navigating a brutal asylum process, and facing the daily fear of detention and deportation. But this is not just a story about borders, it's about the inner journey. The moment when Kenneth stopped running from the world and started facing himself. What followed was a transformation powered by faith, brutal honesty, and belief that life could be more. In sharing his story, Kenneth reminds us that no matter where we come from or what mistakes we've made, we all have the capacity to rewrite the narrative. This is the power of vulnerability, the price of truth, and the beauty of becoming. Now, let's get into it.
I was born and raised in Uganda. I'm one of 4 children. I'm the second born. And growing up, for the most part, we were raised by my mother because my father left Uganda when I was about 4 years old.
Whereabouts in Uganda were you?
In Kampala.
Kampala.
So there's a place called Makerere next to the university. That's where I was born and raised. But my father left Uganda in 1989. I was about 4 years old. My big brother was 6. My young sister was 2, and my youngest brother was about 2 weeks old. And what we understood is Dad went to America. And when I understood that he went on an airplane, I got fascinated with airplanes. From that point, that we used to have this big compound where we used to play football every afternoon with the neighborhood friends, but we would be playing football and there would be planes passing over the Kampala skyline. And I had this game that I just made up for myself. Every time I would see a plane, I would just be looking up at it and just daydreaming, imagining myself in the plane and looking down. And I'm like wondering, okay, what those people up there, are they able to see us down here? Or and it just fascinated me. We used to, would say, it's my plane. In my language, we say, it's my plane. So the one who sees it first, whoever would see the airplane first would claim it. Be like,
so basically dibs on the plane.
That's my plane, that's my plane, that's my plane. And sometimes you would hear the sound and you're looking for it and you hear the sound over there and it's actually this side. And you're like, so sometimes the first one to hear it is not the first one to see it. And then a fight would break out.
That's funny.
But I mean, when I was about 12 years old, it had just locked in my mind that it was not a matter of if it would happen, but rather when. Because I daydreamed about it so much. I imagined myself traveling so much that I was so sure that my future involved living somewhere else outside of Uganda.
So, out of curiosity, what kind of like background did you have? I mean, were you a bit more working class? Were you a bit more, let's say, well off?
I was younger. My father, was really well off. They were big with coffee. At the time, there was a company called East Mango, and they were into the buying of coffee all over the country and preparing it for export. So what I remember, or the stories I've been told by my mom, is like there was always like bags of money at home. They would just bring money for coffee from the bank. Sometimes they would keep it at home, and then in the morning they would go start paying off the farmers and things like that. And then when they have brought the money from the companies or abroad, then would always and then the war happened. So there's a war that started in Uganda. It started in 1981, and it went on until 86. And that just devastated the economy. We had a coffee factory, and it was just literally just devastated. So I think all of those factors had a part to play in the decision that was eventually reached for my father to leave Uganda, because the war went on from 81 to 86. I was born in 84, in the middle of the war.
Yeah.
So, and literally in that war, 500,000 people died. But that's when I was born. My father leaves and he goes to America. We used to talk on a regular basis. So by that time, there were no phones. So what we used to do is called cold calling.
Mm-hmm.
We would go to the post office, and then you would give the post office lady the phone number of my dad and say, I want to call my father. And then they would call. It's called a collect call, actually. Sorry. It's called collect call. So the person who receives the call would be the one paying for it.
Mm-hmm.
So they would call and they say, yeah, Kenneth is here to talk to you. Do you agree to pay for the call?
Mm-hmm.
And he says, yeah. So then we'd get on the phone in the phone booth, and then we'd just talk and talk and talk. And then we were communicating by fax a lot, just writing letters. And then eventually the landlines came to Uganda, and then we got a landline. First it was the neighbors, and then we got one ourselves. And that way we were just in communication with my dad. But every time he would say, I'm coming back in December. Coming back in December. December would come and I would be excited. Because, I mean, growing up for me, maybe I can backtrack a bit. I was a very adventurous child. And I felt like it's my father's love that I missed the most. My mom did a wonderful job in raising us. But I felt like I needed to learn some things that a boy learns from a father. And he was not there to teach me some of these things. So I ended up experimenting with a lot of things. If they would say, don't do this, I would be like, okay, let me find out what happens if I do it.
So you did not have like any father figure, perhaps like an uncle or some grandparent or...
There were uncles,
Yeah.
but I was so rebellious. I was like, you're not my father. You can't tell me what to do.
So, like, makes sense. I mean, yeah.
So, and I got in trouble with the police, the local council, the neighbors at school. And my mom wouldn't let me get out of school. We had a lot of quarrels about that. Yeah. But she just made sure that I stayed in school. And at one point I realized, I mean, every time I started going to pubs quite early, around 15 years old, just hanging out in the night pubs. Because Makerere is really close to the city. It's actually in town.
Yeah.
So I built a network. I had people around me that if I wanted to go out, they would arrange that I go with them or things like that. And so I started pretty early, just getting out, experimenting with alcohol, just whatever.
And the regulations about that in the pubs, was that a bit loose then?
Yeah, if you have the money, they're not going to bother you. It was pretty chill.
So if you can pay for your drink,
yeah, exactly.
then it's fine.
And I was with guys who could pay, but then we would have fights. Sometimes things would just break out, bar bros. I got to a point that sometimes people would be fighting, in the pub, and a fight breaks out. And then you just start fighting. You don't know why you're fighting. And then afterwards you're like, okay, what was that all about?
Yeah,
sometimes
you just get caught up into it.
Sometimes you're hard and you just, and then my dad would call me in the morning. What's this I'm hearing? What's this I'm hearing? You are not being responsible. So I'm like, how did he find out? it just happened like 3 hours ago. Sometimes I would even still be drunk. And they would call me to say, your father is on the phone.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so in my mind, I was like, I really need to know who tells them these things, because I really wanted to give them a piece of my mind.
Who's the snitch?
Yeah, exactly. So it took me a while, but I one day sat down and I wrote my dad a fax. And I told him, look, I really appreciate all the love and the care. But I have a question for you. Every time something happens that I'm involved and it's bad, you literally call me that you know what I did the night before. And I'm wondering who informs you of these things, because you have never called me and told me that I did something good. Is it that I don't do anything good? Or the people that tell you the things they tell you only tell you the bad things I did? And if that's the case, what's their motive? I told him even a spoiled clock is correct twice a day.
Yeah.
Is it true that me, your son, does nothing right? Because you never tell me anything about that. My dad was talking about that fax until he died. My father passed away last year in January.
I'm sorry.
It's all right. But it really had an impact on him. And he was speaking about it to everyone, but never to me. So he comes back to Uganda for the first time. So I went to school. There was the school escapades. That's another story. It's a long one. I was expelled from the school. I was told never to go back until it's 15 years.
Oh, wow.
Because something happened there. They said...
I wouldn't know what happened. Well, what did you do?
They said, even if you hear that we have an old boys meeting here,
Yeah.
don't come.
Okay.
Until after 15 years. And I was like, do you understand? I said, yes. They said, no, you don't understand. Let's explain. If we see you here, we're going to call the police. So my dad and mom, sometimes, adult things, they were not talking. And then so happened that, because my dad used to send all the money we used to use for school. But my mom had a hostel for university students. So she was also making money.
Yeah.
So they had this misunderstanding as adults, because my dad had a new stepmother in America and all of this, and things happened. And so my mom pays for my school fees, everything, gives me all the requirements to go to school. And then it was like a Friday. Then my dad calls when my mom was not home. When are you supposed to go to school? I said Monday. He's like, okay, take this Western Union money control number, go and withdraw this amount of money, and pay your school fees, buy your requirements, and go to school. But my mom had paid for everything already.
Oh.
So I went to school with like the equivalent of like 300 euros pocket money.
I can imagine.
And then I was like...
Probably buy a lot of things with that amount.
So, and then we just used to just get out, just go to the villages near school and just get drunk and buy fish and all sorts of things. And go to the club. One time I'm in this pub, and some guys from a higher class came and said, hey, can you help us with some money? About 20,000, which is about like 4 euros, 5 euros, something like that.
Yeah.
I give it to them. I didn't know what they were going to do. They went and bought benzene, petrol.
Yeah.
And they went and burned a teacher's house.
Oh, shit. Okay. So
And then they burned the store for the food. And then we finished with that pub, then we went to the club. We were coming back in the morning, and then the whole place was surrounded by police. Take us to the police station, and I was there for 2 days. And then they called my mom, and they said, look, you can't study here. You don't know what's going on, but you're not welcome here. You're suspended indefinitely for 15 years. And if you hear that there's meetings happening here, don't come, because you're not welcome until after 15 years.
So basically, you aided in committing a crime without your knowledge.
Yeah, exactly. So my mom tells me, look, I don't know what to do with you. Just find a school where you can study with this behavior of yours. But you're not getting out of school. If you're trying to do all these things so that you cannot study, find a school where you can study with this behavior of yours. So I went to an international school. And so the other school was, it was called Katikamo SDA. And then I went to Aga Khan. In Aga Khan, it was freestyle. We were just doing whatever we wanted. You could come in the morning and, we had this thing that it's better to be drunk than have a hangover. So we wake up in the morning, you have a hangover, you drink a bit, and then you go to class.
Yeah.
So the teacher would say, hey, Kenneth, you're smelling of alcohol. You're like, no, it's from last night. It's like, oh, okay, but you should stop drinking.
Yeah.
And that's it.
No consequences, no nothing.
No consequences, no nothing. And I went through A-levels, then I went to university. But all through that, so around that time, 2007, I hear that my dad is coming.
That's when you were at university?
Yes, in university.
Was that in Kampala?
Yes, in Kampala. So I'm excited. I'm like a 2-year-old. I'm telling everybody who can hear, my father is coming to town.
I'm sorry, so how long have you not seen your dad for at that point?
At that point was about 18 years.
Oh, wow.
Because he went to America and he could not travel out because he didn't have the papers to do that. He didn't have his papers in order, so he was still in the migration procedure, and it took him that long.
Oh, wow. So have you seen your dad before, like, since he left or not?
No, so
that's going to be the first time you see him since he left to the United States.
Yeah. Now I'm excited, and then he comes, and those scandals that I was into, those things about smoking weed and fights and this and that, and they just brought everything and they just dropped it on his table. They told him. So I'm not yet there. Then I go, I'm excited to see him, and he's like, sit down. What is this? Everybody's complaining about you. I'm like, no, they're lying. They just don't like me. He's like, look, everybody cannot say the same thing about you, and you say they're lying. This is not right. Actually, he sat me down and he had a very tough conversation with me. Actually, what he told me is, look, if this is how you've decided to live your life, go right ahead. I don't care. You think if you continue being reckless and your life ends, my life will end? Go on. And that really woke me up. It was like a bucket of ice thrown at my face. Because the only one person whose validation I needed the most, I didn't get. Then I sat down with myself and I was like, something must change. Not that it should or that it ought, but that it was an absolute must. I needed to change some things for myself. And the journey for this change started. I was like, I have to really have my dad tell me that he's proud of me. I speak to some of my friends that I was hanging out with at the time. I'm like, hey, I have made some choices, decisions. I need to change some things around. So I'm not going to be hanging out with you guys that often. They're like, what? You what? You want to change? I say, no, maybe someone else. They say, you are beyond repair. Literally, that's what my friends told me. And I'm like, is this what these guys really see me as? A loser? And it really hit me. And I was like, no, this is not right. So I separated myself from that company.
I guess in a certain way, they wanted to keep you with them in that circle, in that...
And that's the truth.
Yeah.
Because misery loves company. Mm-hmm. When you are in a place that you don't want to be in, you want to be with some people there. And I realized that they had some other reasons other than what they were telling me. So I decided to separate myself from them. And was it hard? Yes, because we were hanging out together. We were smoking weed together. We were getting drunk together. We were partying together and all of that. And so I started the process of separating myself from them. And my journey of transformation had begun. My dad goes back to the United States. We keep in touch, but the relationship is really like not what I expected. Because growing up, it's his love that I desired the most. And I'm like, I really have to do something about this. And I always had this desire of traveling. When he comes back, 2008, I applied to go to the United States. I applied for a visa. And I was so excited. I thought, this is my opportunity. And my visa was denied. I mean, I can never forget that moment. I prepared the documents. I spent the whole night just excited, waiting to go to the embassy. I get there, I present the papers, and the woman looked at them, and then she's like, what's your purpose for going to the United States? I said, for a conference. And she looked at me as if in one move, just took a stamp, put in my passport, application received, and then got a piece of paper and marked one part on it with a pen and then put it on me. Said, next. I was like, wait, is this the visa? This was so fast. What happened? So I sit down and I check and I'm like, oh, but I'm like, it's application received and there's already somebody else there on the counter. I tried to go back and the security guys asked me to leave. Then I realized, okay, they've just rejected my visa application.
So they just said that it was received.
They just put, when they reject the visa, they put application received. They've received the application. Mm-hmm. They just put a stamp in your passport.
Okay. So it was not as if like they're still going to process it, whatever.
It's finished.
It was just received.
Because once, if they're going to process it, they will tell you that they're going to keep the passport. You come back and pick it later.
Yeah.
But it's finished.
It's not even refused. It's just received.
Received.
I guess it's kind of sort of a euphemism somehow, just to make it less brutal.
Yeah. But, I check on the paper that she gave, and it says that I've not showed enough reasons to prove that I will leave the United States after I've finished the purpose of the trip. So I was like, okay. But it was so devastating. It was so brutal. I took it so personal. I had never experienced rejection at that level. And I just, literally, I went to the pub and I just soaked myself in booze. Just got drunk. Just like, I thought that's the way to go. I woke up in the morning and I had a headache and the problem was still there.
So it seemed like alcohol was your to-go-to solution for your issues or your troubles.
It was, but I realized that it was not helpful. And I think it had a lot to do with the way, the examples that I saw around me in society. Because alcohol abuse is really a big issue in many societies in Uganda. People just drink every day for all sorts of reasons. So I just picked that up and I was just using it like as something to just comfort myself. But I realized that it was not helpful. I continue on this journey, self-discovery. I start discovering faith and I'm working through some things for myself. But from that point, I had actually just backtracking a bit. There's a nickname that they used to call me, International. Because I was like, when I was with my friends, all I was talking about is something, it has to be, I used to watch CNN a lot. I'm just telling them international news. Hey, this was happening on the international scene and this and this and this.
So Mr. International.
So they just got tired of me and they started calling me International. And then I had my passport. So there's let me just set the scene for you. I had a rucksack, backpack In that backpack, I had my Bible, I had a bottle of water,
Mm-hmm.
I had a T-shirt, my charger for the phone, and my passport. Literally, I was just taking that with me everywhere.
All right. Why not? Just in case.
I had a backpack, but I had nowhere to go.
Yeah.
So they were laughing at me. They were just making fun of me. And I'm like, yeah, say what you want. I'm going. I'm going somewhere. They're like, okay, or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I just kept my passport with me. At one point, I started to just even put it in my back pocket.
Mm-hmm.
And then 2009, I get an opportunity because at that time, two of my brothers were living here in the Netherlands. So when I was rejected for America, I was like, okay, I set my eyes on Europe. So when I thought about the Netherlands, I was like, okay, this is it.
So why the Netherlands, though? I mean,
My two brothers were living here.
All right.
That's the only reason that really attracted me. So I get an opportunity to travel. I mean, I'd spoken to my mom about all of this, and she was in full support. So I speak to her, and she's like, "Okay, we'll find an opportunity for you." One time I'm just hanging out. Then they're like, "Yeah, there's someone who can help you get a visa for Germany." I was like, "Okay, what's up?" So you have to go and see them tomorrow. Go with your passport. I'm like, I always have my passport. Don't worry about that. So I get there, and the guy's like, "Do you have a passport?" I say, "Yeah." I show it to him, and he's like, "Oh my goodness, what is this?" He's like, "In all my life, I've never seen a very poorly handled passport. It was so."
Because you're carrying it with you everywhere.
I wish I actually brought it for you because I have it here at home. He's like, "How on earth can you get a passport this like ruined when you have not even left the country?" I'm like, "Yeah, I've just been carrying it with me everywhere." He's like, "Okay, you can travel with this. We need to get you a new passport." So he gives me the forms. He had them in his office. I fill the passport forms, and he's like, "Yeah, okay, you can leave this with me. You come back tomorrow." I go back the next day, and he's managed to get me a new passport. For me, I was like, wow, how did he do that? Normally, I've been told this process takes a couple of days or...
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay. And then it's like, okay, now we are going to Germany. It's like, but you need to go for the appointment to the German embassy.
Yeah, for a visa.
For the visa.
Out of curiosity, why did you go to Germany and you had your brothers here?
That's the opportunity that was presented.
So it was not a possibility to come here to visit your brothers, for instance?
No. So, no, it wasn't. So I was like, so he prepares all this paperwork,
mm-hmm.
and he tells me, "Come back to my office tomorrow, ready to go to the embassy." So I go to his office, and he gives me the papers. It's like, okay, go. When I am reaching the embassy, he sends me a text message. "Go to the counter on the left." I'm like, okay, whatever. And then I present the papers to the lady at the counter on the left. And as if like knowing the papers that I presented to her,
mm-hmm.
she just opened them and then went to the page where there was a mistake. And then she's like, "This is wrong." And then she looked at me straight in the eyes. I was like, oh my God, my heart sank. I'm like, this opportunity is also ruined. She's like, "No, go and fix this and come back tomorrow." I was like, am I dreaming? Is this a joke? So I go back to the guy's office, and I'm just heartbroken. I'm disappointed. I'm like, you told me you're going to prepare these documents, and you literally made mistakes in them. And he was just laughing. He's like, "Rest, relax, just go home and come back tomorrow. I was like, okay. So I go and then I come. He has prepared the documents again. I go to the embassy, give them to the lady, and she's like, okay, this is it. Thank you. We'll call you. So she stays with my passport.
Mm-hmm.
In my mind, I'm like, what's going on here? The next day, the guy who arranged the travel documents for me calls me and he tells me, I have your passport. Bring my money, and then you can get your passport. So I'm like, okay. So I'm putting two and two together. I'm like, maybe I have a fake visa or something. But I'm like, no, I know where I left my passport. I left it at the embassy.
Yeah.
So it can't be a fake visa. Maybe the circumstances under which I got the visa
are a bit dodgy.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
I have, so I take the guy's money and then I get my passport.
Was it actually at the embassy or was it more at this company that does
No, but then it
visas for you?
was at the embassy because it was at the embassy at that time, 2009.
Yeah.
That this is recent with the visa handling agencies,
Yeah, yeah.
VFS and all of that. That's
Yeah.
recent.
That's more recent.
Yeah.
Right?
So I have to literally leave within the next 5 days, book a ticket, and I have a visa for 2 weeks to come in as a visitor to Germany for.
It was a tourist visa.
Yeah, it was a business trip.
Mhm.
So I was coming in to buy some bicycles,
Mhm.
something like that.
And we're not really buying bicycles, were you?
No.
No.
In my mind, I mean, when I got on that plane, I wasn't coming back the way I left.
But let's say the reason that you're going for, was it initially like a legitimate reason or not?
What I got was a visa.
Yeah.
Do I know the circumstances under which I got the visa? Yes. When you say legitimate, what do you mean?
No, I mean, like, were you working somehow in the bicycle industry and you wanted to go there to, I mean, not that you really
No.
wanted to get bikes,
No.
but, or was it something that this interesting person
Yeah.
just put on the paperwork that you're going to be doing this and that?
Yeah.
Just as a reason.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
he arranged the documentation and the paperwork and everything. So I get to Germany. Everything is smooth. They check my passport at the airport in Uganda, and everything checks out. And they're like, "Okay, safe trip." I get to Germany. I get on a train to Amsterdam.
Because your brothers were
Yes.
here. Yeah.
And it was around July. And my first shocker was like, I got on the train at around 7 o'clock in Germany, but it was still light. We drive for like 2 hours. It's now 9. It's still light. I'm like, what's happening? Am I in some sort of dream that I don't understand? Because in Uganda, because the sun, we have the equator.
Yes, you're
in
the
Uganda.
equatorial country, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah.
We have almost 12 hours of day and 12 hours of night. So the sun goes down at 6 and it rises at 6 all year round.
Yeah.
So when we studied about that stuff in geography, that when the sun is overhead of the equator, longer days,
Yeah.
all of that stuff, the equinox. I didn't understand. I thought, at one point, yeah, these teachers are just making this stuff up. This can't be possible. Yeah. How can it be that you're in the same place?
The laws of physics have changed.
How can it be that you're in the same place, you've not moved, and you have a longer day and then a shorter night at the time? So I realized that, okay, this is real. And I get here.
And was this like your first time ever traveling?
Yeah, I had gone to Kenya before 2006. There's an opportunity that I wanted to go to Finland, but that visa was rejected as well. So
first time in Europe.
Yes, first time.
First time out of Africa.
Yeah. I was excited, but also equally naive. Yeah. I realized that when I get here, in my mind, I'm like, okay, have to get a university, start to go to school, get a job. And my brothers were just laughing at me. Everybody they were just laughing. They're like, oh my, look at him. And so they were like, okay, you want to know how this works? I'm like, you have a 2 weeks visa. If you want to go back to Uganda, you can do that within the next 2 weeks. You have your return ticket, you can go. But if you've decided to stay here, you have to go through what they call the integration process. And I was like, okay. So you have to seek asylum. I said, what is that? I'm not a refugee.
Yeah.
They said, now you are. I was like, so now some people are telling me all of this, and I'm like, no, this can't be true. They're like, and you have to make up a story, because if you have to say something. So I get some help with that. Some people help me make up a story. They say you can't use your name, because if you use your names, you're going to be found out. So I change my name, change my date of birth. I make up a story. And then they say, okay, now when you're ready, you have to go and declare yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, how does that work? They say, Skipper is the best place. You have to go to the airport, and then you go to the police there. And you say, you've just arrived, you need help. I was like, what? They say, yeah, that's how we do it.
Were you still Ugandan based on this new persona that you created?
Yeah, I was still from Uganda. So,
can you tell us a bit more about the story? Only if you're comfortable with it.
Yeah, it's. I said I'm a political refugee. I cannot go back because of what's happening in Uganda, all of this. Because that's what I was told to say.
Mm-hmm.
But it just didn't sit well with me from the start. I knew what I had done was wrong. So I was like, but if this is how it is, then. So I go to Skipo, and they're like, okay, you want some coffee or tea? So they give me coffee, and then they give me a dark card, a train ticket.
Mm-hmm.
They say, we're sending you to Apo, to the Asylum Seekers Reception Center. When you get there, you'll be helped. So I get to Terapo, and then for some reason, the lady there was some people at the gate. They were like, no, you can't come in. I'm like, what do you mean? So yeah, you have to go back to where you came from. I'm like, no, the police told me to come here. And they gave me even this. They're the ones who gave me this train ticket and this paper, and it has your address. This is the right place, right? They say, yeah, we understand, but you have to go. I'm like, no, I'm not leaving. So I literally sat there.
So they wanted you to go back to Schiphol?
I don't know. Or to Uganda. I don't know. They were just saying you have to go back. You can't be here. So I was like, okay.
Did they know that you came through Germany?
No, they don't know at this time. So I just sat there. But what I realized, this lady just left. Her shift was ending. So I think she just didn't want to get into receiving someone new at the end of her shift.
All right.
So when someone else came and took over from her, it was like, hey, hello, can I help you? I'm like, yes. I've just come here from Skipper. It's like, oh, okay, come with me.
So basically just a person who did not want to do her job.
Yeah. So took me inside, did the registration, and then they gave me a place to stay. They gave me some bed covers, the disposable sheets and everything, disposable toothbrush, remember all of that, so soup and bread. And
How was it there? Like, how were the conditions?
It was good. It was good. I must say. For the setup that I remember, it was good.
What time was this again?
2009.
2009.
So around August now. So sleep and then wake up just waiting. Basically, you're just waiting for the interview. And met another Ugandan there. We just started friendship, but there was all this secrecy around. Yeah, you don't say anything. Don't tell anybody your story. So I'm like, okay. And now I'm stuck. I have a story. I don't even know if it's good enough, but can't tell anybody. I'm like, okay. Then they send me to the reception center, a waiting center in Groningen. And I was in Groningen from about September up to December around there.
So what kind of center was this?
So it's just waiting.
Waiting.
Yeah. So what happens? You've been received at the reception center, but because there is only a limited capacity at the reception center, that's where everybody comes in. And they cannot process applications as fast as they're coming in. They set up a waiting center.
Was this like a COA center?
Yes, it was. It was being managed by COA, but it was not like an asylum seeker center. Because so then you are there in the waiting center. You have to. They do a roll call every day. They give you bread. They give you a meal that you can put in the microwave and some milk and some things. And then they register you.
So you need to prove that you're still staying with them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then I'm there for 3 months until December. We're just waiting, literally. You wake up in the morning, you go for walks, you just sleep, you wake up, you eat, you sleep, you wake up, you're waiting.
Must have been quite boring then.
Yeah.
Were there any activities or anything you can do there?
We could play some games and keep ourselves occupied, but when you're in a new country, a lot of things you don't know, so you're also limited in that. So we did what we could, just keeping ourselves busy. Then I got the letter that my interview date had been fixed. The winter of 2010. That was cold. It was snowing. I remember. They say you have to go to Zwolle from Groningen. They gave me a dark card, like a train ticket for the day, and I could go from Groningen up to Zwolle for the interviews. But I had to be there at a certain time because I had a day to travel and then sleep at Zwolle, and then my interviews were the next day.
All right. So they also covered accommodation as well.
Yeah. So you come and then they register that you've arrived, and then you go sleep and then wake up, go for interview. They sat me in an interview for 7 hours. I had breaks in between, but the whole thing lasted about 7 hours.
Oh, wow.
And they were just asking, how did you come? They were just like, okay. Then I'm giving the story, and then they ask the questions again in a different way, and then they're like, yeah, but this time you told us this, and now it's this, so which one is it? I'm like, wait, can we take a break?
So it was more like an interrogation rather than an interview.
It's an interview, but sort of they're really trying to understand.
Yeah.
And so I finished that interview, and then I'm like, this was not good.
Was this the IND?
No, so what happens, the IND gives, yes, it was being done by people from the IND,
all right.
But the interviewers sometimes are not the decision makers.
Yeah.
So sometimes they interview you, they do the interview, then they register everything, and then it's passed on to the person who makes the decision. After I finished to do that first interview, I was like, this was not good. I'm like, if I was doing that interview, if I was interviewing myself, I would not give myself a pass for this.
No.
This is not good. So in my mind, I'm like, yeah, what this means, I think this is where my trip ends. I think I'm going back to Uganda. So with that at the reception center, you don't know what's going to happen next. Literally everything is just unfolding. You have this uncertainty. What is coming next? What's going to happen? Then they come and read names. Okay, these people. You're going to bus number 5. You're going to Winterswijk. Okay. Then they read my name. I'm like, okay. So then they take me to an asylum seekers center. And then when I get to Winterswijk, I'm registered there with COA, and eventually I get a bank card, and we're getting a weekly allowance of about €55 at the time to just buy yourself some groceries and basic daily stuff that you need. And some were waiting. And I'm like, okay, when are they going to call me again? What's happening? I mean, so in my mind, I'm like, okay, I know I was told there's 2 interviews, so I'm waiting for the second interview. The letter that comes says, now you're invited to go and have a meeting with your lawyer to go through your interview.
Yeah.
They do the review for the interview and everything, and then they do the corrections. You said this here, is this what you meant, and all of that. Then they say, okay, now it's going to be forwarded to the person who's making the decision. 1 year later, they call me for the second interview. It's volley again.
So you were like in limbo for a year,
Just
basically.
waiting, literally. You have this uncertainty. You just don't know.
Were you allowed to work or
No.
anything? No.
No, you're not allowed to work.
But you're allowed to leave the premises.
You can
right?
leave the premises, but we used to do stamping. So every Tuesday, you have to go with your card, the V document. It's called a V document that you put in the machine, and then you put your thumb, and then the computer reads that it's you, that you've registered your presence in the camp. So we used to do that every Tuesday. And I got to a point and I was bored with this whole thing. I'm like, I need to do something. So I used my network in Amsterdam, and I'm like, I need to do something. They're like, okay, yeah, you can come. We see what we can do. So I came to Amsterdam, and I was just doing some work every now and then, black work, just doing cleaning, newspapers, things like that, delivering newspapers. And I would go back. I would leave on Monday and go back to Winterswijk.
So you'd go back just for Tuesday to stamp.
And
then you'd go back to Amsterdam.
And then we had this network that so if I had something to do in Amsterdam, I would just do that. But sometimes there would be nothing to do. And then I would just stay at the center.
All right.
We had this network around that if someone is not around and they receive a letter that you are informed, hey, you have a letter here waiting for you, then you would make sure that you go there to see what the letter says. Then they called me for the second interview, and I panicked. I'm like, oh my goodness. Now I tried to look through, because I had a copy of the first interview. I tried to look through it to understand, to remember the things that I said for the first interview. And I realized that when you tell the truth, you don't have to remember anything, because it's just true. But because I had made up a lot of things, I just didn't remember what I said. And now I have the interview. It's in Dutch. I can't understand it. So I tried to use Google Translate to try and understand what I said. But it was...
Oh, so the paper was in Dutch?
The whole interview was translated in Dutch. So I did the interview in English, but I had a translator, and it was being registered in Dutch, the whole thing. So we get to the interview, and they start asking. Say, in your first interview, you said this. Can you tell us more about that? And then I start going on, and they're like, but actually, you didn't say that. What you said was this. Why is it different? And I'm like, yeah, but this is, like with the numbers, they ask, for example, here you said you were 3 people, now you're saying you're 5. Here you said this date, and then here you're saying this date. Which one is it?
So they're really cross-checking every single thing that you said during the first interview.
And at one point, I'm like, no, I have a headache. I need to take a break. Okay. Then I take a break and then come back. And I mean, I looked at myself in the mirror, went to the toilet, and I felt sick to my stomach. I'm like, what have I got myself into? I knew what I did was wrong, and I just couldn't get out. So I'm like, I need to find a way to right this wrong. I don't know how, I don't know where, but I have to make it right.
Mm-hmm.
Afterwards, they sent me back to the center. And I waited another year. Just waiting. And so after 2 years, I'm not yet studying Dutch. At the time, just they send a letter. The IND has reviewed your application and they're writing to let you know that they have an intention of rejecting your application.
An intention.
Intention to reject. So unless you have new facts or circumstances that you can add to your application for asylum,
Mm-hmm.
it is likely headed towards a rejection. So I try to think, I'm like, what can I add to it? I tried to arrange some things, but whatever I was trying to arrange was unrealistic.
Mm-hmm.
Just adding insult to injury.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm already in a web of lies and I'm trying to get out. If I add anything to it, it's just going to complicate it further. So I said, I'm not adding anything. I went and spoke to a lawyer. And it was like, okay, yeah, I mean, with all of these things that happened, it's easier if you would say like you're gay, for example. It would be easier. I'm like, no, I'm not going there. I'm like, okay. And I said, yeah, get ready to be locked up, because by then there was really strong legislation in Uganda against homosexuality. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of people were coming in on that.
It's still the case now, right?
Yeah. So I said, I'm not getting myself in that. Because I've already told lies, I'm just not going to get myself into another web of lies. And the lawyer literally got my file and just dropped it on the desk, on the floor. Boof. It was like, by then, a big file like this. He said, then I can't help you. Get ready to be deported. So I go back to the Asylum Seeker Center. Then I have an appointment with Department of Repatriation and Departure, DTMV. They say you have an appointment. And then I get there and they have, it's called Form AA.
Mm-hmm.
If you're applying for a passport in Uganda, it's one of the forms that you fill. It's called a citizenship verification form.
Yeah.
And he has it on his desk, and he has literally filled in all the details already. And he just wants me to sign.
Yes. Someone from the Ugandan embassy?
No, not Ugandan embassy. No. It's the Dutch guy from the Department of Repatriation.
So it's already filled in everything for you?
Yeah. So he's like, yeah, your application has been rejected. So now you have to sign this document so that we can prepare your departure. I'm like, I'm not applying for a passport. He's like, yeah, but you have to go. I'm like, no, I didn't say I'm going. He's like, you have to sign this so we get you a laissez-passer, which is a temporary passport, to be able to go to Uganda. I'm like, I'm not going to Uganda yet. He's like, okay, then you're going to be going to prison. Are you all ready for that? The way he made it look so scary. He made it look so terrifying. I was like, if that's what it's got to, I have to see how this ends. I sat down. There's something I do with myself. I ask myself, what's the worst that could happen? I sat down and I thought the worst that could happen is I would be back in Uganda. And I realized that if that's what it is, I'll be okay with it. But I have to see how this plays out.
Mm-hmm.
They said now the IND sends their rejection. The negative. Your application has been denied. And you have 2 weeks to appeal the decision. But you have to have some new facts or circumstances. And I didn't have any. So I was like, okay, nothing. Now those were tough days. You can't eat. Food loses its taste. You sleepless nights. The stress is like through the roof. You're just wondering, like, what's happening?
So literally, like, just waiting your time out.
Yeah. And I mean, the way the system is all set up, it's just my opinion. It's kill the mind and keep the body strong. I felt like in a lot of ways the system was intending to get into my mind to just, and I waited those 2 weeks out. And then a letter comes. Since you have not appealed your decision for the negative, your application for asylum has been closed. This means that you have 10 days to leave the Netherlands. If not, you will be arrested, you will be detained, and you will be deported. I was like, I read the letter and my stomach just, I was like, oh my goodness, what is this? What is this? What have I got myself into? But I thought about running away to Amsterdam, but I'm like, okay, but then what would that solve? I would still be illegal. And that's not the route I wanted to go.
Mm-hmm.
So I say, okay, let me wait it out. And so in my mind, I'm counting 10 days.
So you try to basically like stretch, let's say, the process as long as possible.
Yeah.
Was there like a part that you kind of didn't want to face reality somehow? Or were trying to kind of delay the inevitable?
My mind was made up.
Mm.
I was like, I just want to see how this ends. And I refuse to give up. I'm like, let me see how this turns out. So they say I have 10 days. And then what I would see sometimes, you would be doing stamping and you would see the immigration police cars standing there. And you're like, okay, maybe there's someone they've come for. And sometimes the people they would come for would not know that they've come for them. And sometimes they would know and not show up.
Mm-hmm.
So they would just go and be away. So the police would wait and the person they're waiting for doesn't show up. I was there. I was just waiting that whole week. I was like, I'm not going anywhere. Tuesday, the day we used to stop, at 7 o'clock in the morning, I hear a knock on my door in the room where I live. It's the core with the immigration police. They say, immigration police, core, open. I'm like, oh, okay, my heart just sank. I was like, they say, open. If you don't open, we'll break the door. I'm like, okay. Then I open the door, and the police says, he introduces himself. I am from the immigration police, and we're here to take you with us because at this point, you are illegal in the Netherlands. So can you give us your V document, the ID?
Mm-hmm.
I give it to them. They take it, and then they say, okay, you're allowed to take one bag. Whatever you can fit in one bag, that's what you can take. I mean, I'd been in that center for 2 years. I'd bought a television, I had some books, some clothes, all sorts of things. 2 years you've been. And I had to pack one bag. So I put it in the bag, and then I get out of the room. They said, do we need to handcuff you? I'm like, no, I'm not going to run. So you're not going to surprise us or anything? I'm like, no. So they were like really trying to check if I was, and because I was living at the center,
Mm-hmm.
and the core people really knew me. They're like, yeah, if he says he's not going to run, we know him. If he was going to run, you wouldn't have found him here.
Yeah.
So they're like, okay, just go and sit in there in the back.
Yeah. So they did not handcuff you or anything.
So I get out and sit in the back of the car was literally parked in front of the door. You know, like the parking place is over there.
Yeah.
But they were literally on the grass in front of my door. I was like, this is serious. And everybody is looking out the windows. Oh, they're taking Kenneth. So then they take me to Detention, the police station. And then all of a sudden, the police lady, there was someone from the police also with the guy from DTMV comes back. He's like, look, this doesn't have to be like this. You can just sign this thing and then it'll be okay. I'm like, I understand, but I'm not signing. So they're going to give you a lawyer. And so then in my mind, because of this incident of this guy from DTMV asking me to sign something, something registered in my mind, don't sign anything. Don't sign anything. So police lady came and said, we need to take your fingerprints. And I'm like, okay. So I gave my fingerprints. And then afterwards, she's like, yeah, you need to sign for the fingerprints. I'm like, why? They're my fingerprints. They're also my signature. Why do I need to sign them? She said, yeah, because you've given your fingerprints. I'm like, no, I'm not signing anything. And she's like, okay, but you're just signing for the fingerprints. I said, no, sorry, I'm not signing. If you can take them without me signing them, then it's okay. Then she takes them. And then, so with the bag that they took, I have a meeting with immigration police. They have to do they've checked the bag and they found some money in there. It was about 1,500 euro. And they were like, have you been working? I'm like, no. Do you have a computer? No. Do you have, no. How come you have all this money? I'm like, I have been living here for 2 years. And I get 55 euro every week. And you're surprised I have 1,500 euro? It's like, wait. So he did a quick calculation of 55 euro times 24. And he's like, no, this doesn't add up. I'm like, I didn't say I get 55 euro every month. I get it every week. So he's like, hey, checks. And then he's like, yeah, it's possible if you save the money. And so then they leave it with me. They're like, okay. I get a migration lawyer who comes and then it's like, okay, you're okay. You're not sick. You're fine. It's like, yeah. Say, two options. You can sign this document and go to Uganda next week or even tomorrow, or you wait this out. I'm telling you how this plays out. You're going to detention. I was like, what? He says, yeah, if that is what you want to do, go ahead. So I'm like, okay. But I'll try and put up a good case for you. We're going to court next week. And they'll bring you.
So at that point, you still didn't agree to sign anything?
No,
right?
I didn't. I refused to sign. Then the date for court comes. So they took me from Detention to Zeist. And the way I was transported, like a criminal, just those big police trucks that I was like, oh my goodness. It's like a mobile prison, literally.
Yeah. Were you cuffed?
Yeah, at the time. So I was like, oh my goodness. I'm not a criminal. Why am I being treated like one? So I get to the detention center in Zeist. They check my things and then they're like, yeah, you can take only a few shirts and a few trousers, one pair of shoes or two pairs of shoes, and the rest will be kept. They opened an account for me in the Royal Bank of Scotland and they put my money on there. And even while we were in the detention center, we were getting a weekly upkeep of, I think it was 10 euros, something like that. So they were putting money on my account. And I was just in that place. And while I was in the detention center, I mean, the first days were tough. I remember at one point, I just broke down.
Was this detention center, was this like for people in the same situation as you are, or was
Yes.
this? So it wasn't like a regular prison, or
No,
anything?
it's an immigration detention center.
All right.
It's in Zeist. So I broke down when they put me in the cell. So when I got there, the first thing they say, you have to do a psychiatric evaluation. They put you in like a psych ward. They put you in like a gown for the psych hospital. And then you're literally just in a room. There's camera in the corner, and then you're just on a bed downstairs on the floor, and there's literally nothing in the room except a toilet. And you're just there. You're being observed and evaluated. But that experience alone was enough to make someone unstable.
How long were you in there for?
So I was there for so I came in like the afternoon and was there for like until the afternoon, so about 24 hours.
24 hours.
Then around the following day, someone opens the door, and then he asks me, "Can I come in?" I was like, "Yes, please." It's like, so when they put me in there, I asked, "Can I have my Bible?" They brought my Bible, and I just was reading the Bible and just praying and just with my thoughts and the reality of where I had found myself. So this guy comes in and is like, "Do you know who I am?" I'm like, "No." He's like, "I'm a psychiatrist. I'm here to do a psychiatric evaluation of you." He's like, "Do you know where you are?" I'm like, "Yes. Detention center. What is your name? Do you know why you're here?" I tell him all of this. He's like, "Okay. I think you're fine. You're good to go." Then they do the check to make sure that I'm not carrying anything with me. And I wrote about all of that. And they take me to the detention center. I get there and I just broke down. I'm like, how do I get myself here? How do I explain this? What is this? But then I got there and there was people everywhere. I'm like, okay, I'm not alone. I realized there's other people going through a similar experience.
Did that help?
Yeah, it helped to just realize that I was going through a tough experience, but that it was not isolated, that I was not the only one. And then I was worried about the fact that I had given wrong names and all of this. Then I saw there's people who had no names. They refused to give their names. They were just registered with a number, no name, and then they just give you a serial number. And we started just making fun about all these kind of things. But one day while I was in that detention center, I saw something on one of the walls that said, "What would you think if I told you that everything that has happened in your life has had a part to play in you ending up here? And what would you say if I told you that right here, right now is exactly where you're supposed to be in order for a future that you don't know about to unfold?"
Those are quite some powerful words.
Yeah, I was like, I started thinking about all the choices that I had made, the mistakes, the lies, everything. And I'm like, and until that point, I was angry about life. I was mad about the system. I was angry about my parents. I had this long list of blame. I blamed the government of Uganda, the government of the Netherlands, the system, the police, everything. I had a long list of blame. It was my list, but I wasn't on it. And that caused me to do some internal self-reflection. And I realized that if that's how it is, that all these people are to blame for the way my life is. All these people have to change for my life to change. And I realized that that's going to be a long time waiting. I got to the realization that it was easier for me to take the blame. And then I have the power to change it. So I made a new list and I only put one thing on it, me. That if my life is not the way it is, it's because of something I've done. Mm-hmm. And if it is ever going to change, it's because of something I'm going to do. That empowered me. And I started on this journey of searching within myself. I realized that I was an encourager. That even in the midst of the most hopeless situation, I always found a way to give another person hope. I just decided to just start exploring that. I spoke to the people who are volunteering in the detention center. They're coming to do church programs, and Sunday, and we were singing and praying together. And I talked to this pastor. I just told her, she's like, "What do you want to do?" I'm like, "I want to read." She's like, "Okay. What do you want to read? What are you interested in?" I told her. I mean, at that point, I wasn't a reader per se, but I just felt like I need to do something to keep myself busy. So she's like, "I think I have a book that you would like." I don't know if it was from her. One day my cell was open and I found The Power of Positive Thinking on my bed by Norman Vincent Peale.
Someone just put it there.
Yeah, I just found the book there. And I thought the only person I told about the desire to read or something was this pastor. And they had full access. If they wanted to come in, they would be allowed to come in anyhow. So I'm like, in my mind, it could only have been her. Maybe she tried to bring it for me, but we never spoke about it. She never told me that I brought a book or something. So I read the book from cover to cover about 3 times. I'm like, how come no one ever told me some of these things? Because, I mean, I was at school. I read to pass exams, not as a hobby or for personal development. And I realized that the person who won't read and the person who can't read have no difference. I could read, but I wasn't reading. And so I started a habit of reading. And it was there that I got this idea of writing a book myself. I'm like, how it came about is I was in the detention center.
Yeah.
And so I read this book and it really spoke to me on a very personal level. And after I finished to read it, I gave it to someone else. We started a prayer group and we were just encouraging one another in there. Some people ended up being deported. You'd be there and then you hear someone say, "Yeah, I've just been told they got a laissez-passer, a temporary passport, and I'm being deported tomorrow." And it was always a sad, sad sight. Like, when I had gone to the judge had said, the IND lawyer said, immigration law allows up to 18 months for someone to be in detention while they're being expelled. And then the judge asked me, he said, "Do you know about what they're talking about?" I said, "Yeah, that I refuse to cooperate to sign the document." And the judge asked me, "Do you know about the document they're saying?" I said, "I know." He said, "Why haven't you signed it?" I said, "I don't want to go. I'm not a criminal. I've just decided to stay here." He's like, "Okay, but we have laws. And we are allowed up to 18 months, but if they cannot expel you within 10 months, they have to let you go." So it was. And I was just there. And the gentleman from the DTMV used to come every month to the detention center for an appointment with me. "How are you doing? How is everything there? Are you still strong? Why don't you just sign this thing and then you get the laissez-passer and then you go home?" I'm like, "Look, I understand that you have a job. to do, to come here and ask me to sign this, but I've already told you, I'm not signing anything. And I was like, so one time, they had this thing that they do. He comes with a mobile phone. He's like, yeah, we know calling cards are expensive. You can call with my phone anywhere in the world. And you can speak for as long as you like. I was like, no. Because I'd had a story.
Mm-hmm.
Someone in the detention center had used the phone. And when he left, he just redialed the number. And then he's like, look, I'm from the police. And who was the person using this phone to speak to you? Yeah, it's my son. Yeah, he's not okay. Whatever he told you, he's lying to you. He's in prison and he's going to die here if you don't do something about it. And so the old woman now is in panic. She's like, oh my goodness, why is he lying to me? He told me he was okay, that I shouldn't worry. Like, no. So what should I do? Good. The next time you speak to him, ask him to sign the papers so that he can come home alive. Psychological. So you're there and then you just call your mom and then she's just hysterical. Why are you lying to me? The police called me. They told me you're not okay. Just sign the papers and come home. This guy said he refused to call his mother again until he was out of detention. Because every time he called, that's what she was talking about. So it was to that level. So when the guy asked me to call with his phone, I refused. Another time he came and he was like, look, what are your plans for the future? You're just sitting here, wasting time. Tell me, what are your plans for the future? I said, look, you're not my life coach. Just don't talk about my future. Just let's talk about why you came here. I'm not signing that paper if that's what you want.
Basically trying different tactics.
Then he said at one point, he said, if I could put myself in your shoes. And I was like, look, my shoes are too big for you. I told him. I'm like,
That's an amazing answer. I'm sorry.
I told him,
yeah.
I am a migrant. You were born here. You do not know and you will never know what it feels like to be on this side of the table. But I can be on your side of the table, but you can't be on mine. So don't patronize me. My shoes are too big for you. You are not a migrant. You can't put yourself in my shoes. I saw his face was getting red. The next time he had an appointment, he sent someone else. So he didn't come again. And so after 10 months, I get a fax from the guards. Say, actually, there's something that happened. One of the guards, she told me one time, just because I'm friendly, I just open up to people. One time she's like, I don't know how you do it. How can you be here and you still be happy? I'm like, what should I do? She's like, can I be honest with you? If I was in your situation, I would just kill myself. I was like, oh my goodness, sorry for you, but
I mean,
that's literally what she told me. She's like, but I just want to let you know that I admire your strength.
No, but that's so inappropriate though. Because it's almost, I mean, if someone is in such a vulnerable situation.
Exactly.
It's almost as if this person is almost planting an idea in your head. So even if you're not considering it, or maybe if, let's say hypothetically, if you were in that situation where you're doubting whether you should end your life, something like this could also, I don't know, push someone over the edge, right? So it's really inappropriate.
Indeed. I understand what you mean, but I think she also realized who she was telling that to, because with my own eyes, I saw men break in that detention center. That someone comes in and within 3 months, they're being taken to the isolation to just be by themselves because they couldn't be with people anymore because they've become mentally unstable because of the pressure.
Okay.
So I think she realized.
So the isolation was supposed to help with the mental health situation.
No, the isolation is for treatment and so that you don't escalate things in the detention center.
Okay.
For others. So, I mean, after that, this fax came and they said, you're free to go.
You're free to go because
The judge. So what happened? The lawyer was appealing my application every month.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have to go there in person, but he was always appealing every month. And it so happened that after 10 months, because that's what the judge had said, he ruled and he said, if you still have Kenneth in detention, you have to let him go.
So you run down the clock.
And then this guy said, the guards tell me, yeah, you're free to go. And I panicked. I was like, I can't go outside. What am I going to do there? And I had got so comfortable with being in detention that I was like, and it's so fascinating that sometimes the place you're used to being is not the place where you belong.
Yeah.
But you just get comfortable.
Yeah.
And so I was like, where am I going? What am I going to do?
What does it mean that you were free to go?
Exactly. Let me explain. So the judge had said, I have to be released from the immigration detention center.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens? They told me this in the evening, so I have to prepare the night. And then in the morning, I also don't know what's happening at this point. I go down, they take me, and then they give me my bag, my money, everything. And they say, okay, now they give me yellow paper that they've received the fax from the judge. That the judge has decided that I should be released because I've been in detention for 10 months and they have failed to expel me. So that I should leave the country myself. That's what was on the paper, that I should leave. The good thing is that there was no date on it, like that I should leave in 2 weeks or something. So I was just moving around with this paper. I called a friend in The Hague who I was living with, and he's from Nigeria. We started just living together. I went to church, and I was just doing voluntary service in churches. Because by that time, I'd done a lot of self-reflection. I'd understood a lot of things for myself. So when I was talking to like a pastor in church, he was like, you can help teach Bible classes. I'm like, but I've never taught Bible classes. He's like, I've heard you speak. I've heard you talk about this stuff. You know something that can help people. So I was like, okay, give me some material. And I was just doing that.
And at this point, you were illegal.
Illegal, yes.
So you were free to go.
Yes.
But they could not get rid of you.
Yes. So the whole thing is, I am illegal in the country. I have this yellow paper, and I just have to leave the country. One time, police controls me. There was something that happened, and then the police came, and they were like, where's your passport? And I took out the yellow paper, and I gave it to him. He's like, no, I'm not asking for a paper. I want your passport. I'm like, this is what I have. He's like, are you joking? I'm like, no, sir. This is what I have. So he checks the paper. He sees there's a number on it. He calls the number, and they ask, have you found him doing something wrong? No. They say, okay, if he's not doing something wrong, just give him back that paper and tell him that he has to leave the country.
But they cannot enforce anything.
Yes.
The only, let's say, inconvenience is that you cannot work, you cannot study.
Exactly.
So you're basically living a parallel life, or if you're staying, you have to stay black, basically.
Yeah, exactly. So through the church, I get some connections. So there's people who are working with Shell, because I was in a Nigerian church, and Shell experts come in and go. So one time the pastor asked me, he said, what do you do during the week? I said, I'm pretty free. He's like, okay, I need you to go and help one of my friends with moving some things. So this guy left me in his house in the morning. He had to go to work. He told me what to do, pack these boxes, do this, that. So I just was there from like 8 until like 6. Then he comes back. He's like, okay, thank you for helping. But we didn't talk about payment. Is 10 euro per hour okay? I'm like, okay, yeah, that's fine. So he gives me 100 euro. He's like, come back tomorrow. And I was there for like 5 days. And he was giving me 100 every day.
All right. That's good pay.
I'm teaching just Bible classes on Sunday and then one class on Wednesday evening. And when this guy went, the person who came in his place, he gave him my contact. And so I had like a network. And sometimes I would finish a month with like 2,000. I'm like...
Tax-free?
Exactly. Yeah. So it was fascinating. And just during that time, so one time just doing these Bible classes, and it was a Nigerian church, so everybody in the church was Nigerian. A Dutch girl walks in, and everybody's like, hey, welcome back. So everybody knows who she is, and I'm in the middle of the Bible class. I finished to do the Bible class, then I go say hello to her, and she says, "You are not a Nigerian." And I said, "Neither are you." Because I didn't know it was like supposed to be a requirement or something.
Yeah.
And then so we started talking, and then turns out she had been to Nigeria for research. Yeah. And so she had joined this church to have a network of Nigerians in the Netherlands who could help her navigate while she's in Nigeria. We start to get to know each other. We are friends. She's joining the Bible classes. We're talking, and I think a year later, this is 2012. A year later, I ask her out. I'm like, "Yeah, would you like to go out with me?" She's like, "What?" Her answer was, "What took you so long?" I'm like, "Yeah, I just didn't want to get this wrong, because I mean, she was asking all the questions. I mean, what are you doing here? Dutch people are very direct. She asked, I was like, I will tell you everything you need to know, but let's take it in stages, because I don't want to overwhelm you.
Mm-hmm.
Mine is a complicated one." So I told her everything. And when she first started asking, I first freaked out. I'm like, "Is she a spy? Too many questions, too direct." It just made me uncomfortable. I was like, "Get away from me." Yeah. But then I was like, I remember the commitment I had made to just right this wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, if she's a spy, this is my opportunity. I told her everything. And then she's like, "Okay. Now I know. It's okay." So we just became friends, and we were just talking about all sorts of things. And in the midst of that, our relationship just sort of just developed. And when I asked her, she's like, "Yeah, what took you so long?" So in her mind, I think she already wanted me to go that route, but I wasn't just ready to do that. So we go and see a migration lawyer in Amsterdam, because we were just wondering. She was just finishing up with a master's program then, and she just got awarded a PhD program. But then we're just wondering. And at this point, I'm like, I've had it. I just want to go. Because I had this idea of writing this book to just tell the world my story. Opening up the strength you need to persevere. Because I just wanted to document my experience and share it with the world. And getting to that point, but I realized I was restricted here. I couldn't work. I couldn't explore anything. I wanted to just go back to Uganda. When we spoke to the migration lawyer, he said, "It's simple. Go back to Uganda and apply to come back." And I told the lawyer, "Wait, this is a lot more complicated than that. This is what I told the IND. This is what I did." It's like, "Okay, it's good that you say that, because it's important information to know." It's like, when you're filling that form, there's a part where they ask, "Have you ever been illegally in the Netherlands?" "Yes." "Have you ever told the Dutch government false information?" "Yes." "What?" "Just tell them everything." So there was a small box in the form. "Have you ever told false information?" And I was like, "Please see attached PDF." I just wrote the whole thing for them. Wrong names, wrong date of birth. This is who I really am, but I actually told you this.
So there's like an opportunity to come clean.
So I just put everything there. And then we submitted. I went to Uganda. So what I did, I just went to IOM and I got the laissez-passer, the thing that guy wanted me to get the other time. Then I got it for myself.
The one that you wanted, they wanted you to sign, basically.
I went and filled one and I signed it for myself, and then they got me a ticket and I went home. And while I was home, I went to Kigali in Rwanda. That's where the Dutch embassy for the exams was. I did the Dutch exams. And then I came back. So not just came back. The decision was 30 days. They said they needed 90 days to make a decision.
For a
The
tourist
IMV.
visa.
Yeah. No, not tourist visa. MVV. Now coming back as a partner to a European citizen.
Okay, so basically, you were, I mean, the lady that you were dating.
Yes.
So you came back here, but you were not married yet, were you?
No, we were not married. So actually, what we were thinking about even settling in Uganda. But she was here on a PhD program, so she was like, "No, it's not practical. We can arrange to just stay here." So when we applied, they gave me a positive response in 30 days. And then got on a plane and then we came back. And a year later, we got married in 2015. And it's actually our 10th year anniversary.
Congratulations.
On the 15th, I mean the 11th of April, sorry. And, but just looking back on all of it, it's, after we got married, I applied for my Dutch passport. And I still had my Ugandan passport, so now I have dual citizenship. That's my story. I'm sticking to it.
That's quite the journey. Yeah. So, yeah, that was fascinating.
Thank you.
And yeah, tell me a bit more about how was it to be here legally, like suddenly.
Yeah. It was strange yet familiar. You know, you having already been in a place and you just know how things work, but you cannot do them. Like for example with work, I was doing black, I was working but just not paying tax. So then now realizing that, okay, now that I'm here and I can pay tax, I have to find a job and then get in the system and then get to school and do all these things. And
yeah,
it was liberating to realize that it's that I'm free to explore my potential to the fullest. And I mean, I've since written 3 books. I'm working on some others. I do some speaking, I do some coaching, and yeah, just trying to be a good citizen.
Yeah. I mean, since I've met you, and this is quite a while now, I think we go back 5 years or so, and I mean, one thing that always strikes me when I think about Kenneth is you've got this positivity around you. And I remember, like, everyone that we also know in common, we also, oh yeah, Kenneth, he's always positive, always smiling. If you want to talk with, if there's one person that's always looking at things from the bright side, and that's you, Kenneth.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating. It's and I wish I was more like that. To be honest, I wish more people were like that as well. I mean, especially considering the circumstances, everything that you've been through.
Yeah.
What would you say is the source of that positivity? I mean, I know you kind of probably touched upon it in the story, but what does it go back to? And yeah, how do you maintain that?
Yeah, I think if I could summarize it, is to just play the hand that life deals you. That when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. Because it's like we have been told a lie at one point in our life, that things are supposed to be easy. And so at the first sight of a resistance or a challenge, what we want to do is just pack up and run. But the truth is, sometimes we have been part of creating that situation. That if you pack up and run, sometimes people go for holidays. So I just need to go for a holiday, I need to go for a break. Pack the bag, and then they get on the plane, and then they get there and they realize that they're there. Because you take yourself with you wherever you go. And then you realize that, oh, actually, the problems I had in the Netherlands are still with me.
Yeah. You also go on holiday too.
Yeah. And you're like, what do I do?
Yeah.
You can't run away from yourself.
No.
Yeah. What do you do? But to realize that no matter how bad it is, it could be worse. That there's actually people who are having it way worse than you're having it. And sometimes people think problems are only reserved for a certain class of people. Everyone is challenged at their own level. They're not special gifts for the poor. Everybody has problems. And to just realize that the problems you have are the ones you can handle. For me, that's what helps me to realize that. Just imagine a table, a big table that is big enough for everyone in the world to put their problems on there. And then the good things in their life, and then the challenges they deal with. The president, the prince, the royalty, I don't know who, the king, and everyone. Everybody puts their life and the challenges they deal with. And you also put yours and the challenges you deal with. And then the condition is you have to pick one life from the table and the challenges that go with it. I bet you that 10 out of 10 times you'll pick up the exact things that you put on that table. Because that's what you can handle.
That's an interesting theory.
That's what you can handle. If you could handle something else, you'd be having something else. And I think sometimes more than anything, we have to just focus on becoming more. Or just to realize that we can only get to that place that if we increase our capacity, then whatever it is that life presents, we'll be able to deal with it in a way. Just think of it like there are people who experience a challenge, and because of that challenge, they're like, yeah, this is it. I'm out. I like the analogy of a man who had 2 sons. And the man was a drunkard. He wasted his life in alcohol. Just didn't do anything with himself. Just got drunk all his life. But the only thing good that he did in life was have 2 sons. And one of his sons went on to be an alcoholic, just like his father. And when they asked him, why are you like this? He's like, my father was an alcoholic. How can you even ask me something like that? And then the second son went on to be a very successful doctor. He never touched a drink in his life. And they asked him, how did you do this? He said, what did you expect? My father was an alcoholic. I saw what that stuff did to him. Same situation, different perspective.
Different outcomes.
Yeah. And so is life. So I choose to be positive because the way I say it is, there was a time I was so negative about life that if you would have put me in a dark room, I might have developed into photographs. It was that bad.
Yeah.
I was so negative. But I realized that there's a different way. There's a better way. And I think sometimes the thing we don't realize is that we have a choice. And so we always have a choice. I choose to be positive. Not because everything is okay, not because everything is as it should be, but that I have control.
That's very inspiring.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, well, thank you very much, Kenneth. Do you have any last words? Anything you want to share with the listeners, the viewers?
You are welcome, first of all. And this has been wonderful. I'm so glad that you reached out and we were able to do this. But just to our listeners, believe in the beauty of your dreams and dance to the beat that you feel in your heart. Sometimes there's music that is playing in our hearts, and when you listen to that beat, maybe for a season you're the only one who can hear it, but just dance to the beat that is in your heart. and the world will catch up, because there's something that you have that the world needs. But until you are willing to do what you need to do to put it out there, we're missing out. And you're just not lagging yourself behind, but you're lagging all of us behind. So dance to the beat in your heart and let us catch up. Thank you so much, and appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, everybody. This is a wrap. Thank you, Kenneth.